Hey!
This is JJ and Alex.
I made a name for myself, I told you I won't be denied.
As you wrap up your day, it's time to get your fix of the teams you live for and the sports you love. This is JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
They pay better than here.
Welcome back, everybody. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
We could start every show with an Alex Curie giggle.
Why
It's a
not?
good day.
Come on. What do you got in there, Jeremy? Some peanut M&Ms? Halloween is over.
No, I have nothing. What are you talking
That's the
about?
Curie family Halloween candy. I hope you feel good about that.
No, it's yours you brought in.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. I stole it from my kids and brought
Are
it
you
in.
are you rubbing it into Alex?
No,
You can't
no,
eat
no.
that.
That's what I'm saying is like I just get jealous. When I see other people eating candy, I get jealous.
I'll do a better job of hiding it.
No. I want you to enjoy it. You fool.
I could mow through a whole bag of that stuff.
Oh
and not
my
even
gosh. Just the amount of peanut butter cups that I would stack up alone. Because and I tell you know what I tell myself? These are smaller than the normal ones. So I'm
Oh yeah, you're cutting calories.
I'm basically saving calories.
Right.
I'm losing weight by eating these.
Yeah.
It's the same same thing that we like use sometimes when you go, it was on sale. I had to buy it. I saved
saved
this
money.
money. Yeah. Same principle. I lost weight eating this peanut butter cup because it's smaller than the normal ones. Okay? So I hope you are enjoying your candy today, everybody out there. Mowing through the rest of your Halloween candy on your way to the holiday season.
Yeah.
Because, heaven knows you needed that. My daughter asked.
We moved from candy season to pie season.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
No, I love it. Costco's has had the pumpkin pies out for 6 months now. So there you go.
Have we had the pie conversation?
We can have it. Are you not a pumpkin pie guy?
Oh, I love pumpkin pie.
Okay.
I know a lot of people out there like,
Wait. What's your pumpkin pie situation?
No, I like it. Mel Kiper eats it, I think, every day for breakfast.
Oh, he does? Wow. No, that's
He's
a different
obsessed
level.
with it.
now that's weird.
So I don't like pumpkin pie.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I think
What is it?
I don't know. The fact that you're eating a vegetable, you're supposed to like it. That's how hardcore my hate is of vegetables. All right. Are you going to look it up to see if it is a vegetable or not?
It's not a vegetable.
Is it a
you
fruit?
know better.
Is it a fruit?
You know better.
What family?
Pumpkin is a fruit.
It's a squash. Yeah.
It's of the squash
Yeah,
family.
okay,
It is a fruit.
It is a fruit, but nobody goes, "Hey, will you pass me some of that spaghetti fruit?" No, it's spaghetti squash. All right. We don't look at pumpkin and go, "What a beautiful fruit." Come on, get out of here.
I'm telling you, you put a daub of real whipped cream.
See, that's what
on
you're
the
saying.
top of it with a side of
But
vanilla
see,
ice
this
cream.
is my point. When you already have to go, I'm telling you, you heat it with some ice cream and some whipped cream, you're going to love it. Yeah, so would my hand.
Do you eat apple pie dry?
Apple pie on its own, I could eat standing.
But isn't it better with a dollop of whipped cream
I'm sure,
and
but
a
I
side
won't,
of vanilla ice cream?
But see, I can cut out a cold piece of apple pie out of the fridge and eat that thing on the way to the couch, and I love it. But I won't do that with pumpkin pie. I will eat pumpkin pie because I'm a fat person, all right? But I dress it up with as much whipped cream as you can. So there you go. And I'm not un-American, but we just have better pie choices nowadays. It's 2024, man. It's 2024.
Look, I am an equal opportunity pie eater.
You'll eat it all. I know.
I'll eat it all.
What? Okay. Well, we'll get into more of those discussions as Thanksgiving approaches. I think we're trying to avoid the inevitable right now, which is as much rivalry talk as you can handle. We've got a shortened show today, of course, because we've got two things going on. At 5 o'clock, you're going to get pregame of the Utah Hockey Club over on 1280 AM. And you're going to get Utah Jazz pregame against the Milwaukee Bucks tonight in Milwaukee. That also starts up at 5 p.m. over on 97.5. So there you go. That's the end of it. We just have all these things going on, and we're going to have to shorten our rivalry trash
Rivalry
talk.
weekend.
Yeah, is that what he called it?
Rivalry weekend.
Rivalry week. So if you want to learn how to rival right, go to rivalright.org today. JJ, just if you want to rival right.
Oh, I will go there.
All right, let's figure it out. Let's kick off the program. We got tons going on here, so let's get going. We got some college football to discuss here. We didn't get into our full discussion of what the bracket means and how little the bracket will mean as soon as a loss happens for BYU, and all of the arguments about whether BYU should be where. We had those. We had the complaint fest go on already. We already talked a little bit about whether or not BYU should be at 9 or not, and how disrespected they were, and we let Greg McElroy kind of roll that out for us. Our show is brought to you by G2G Bars. All natural ingredients and no preservatives make the G2G Bar perfect for anybody who needs that quick, tasty, nutritious boost. Let's kick everything off here with the cut.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, and this portion of the show brought to you by Trajan Wealth, TRAJANwealth.com. Trajan Wealth for all your local trusted financial fiduciary needs. TrajanWealth.com. All right. So the rankings are out, and with BYU at number 9, that's fine. Some of our discussion is, of course, moved around to. I'm looking at the right thing, though, right? Am I?
It's not fine.
I don't know which. Hey, Jeremy.
We can talk about this. We're good.
We're having a technology issue over here. We're having all sorts of issues.
It.
Okay, all right.
And we can do this topic.
No,
it's
but
amazing.
I know, but I was just look. I will tell you too what we have going on. At 3:30, Austin College is going to be coming on the program, and at 4 o'clock, we're going to have our weekly discussion with Connor Pay, of course, and then I think at 4:30 is that when Steve Bartle comes on and tells us who the starting quarterback is for Utah this week.
Exactly. That's what
Is that what he's going to say? Is that what he's going to do? No. All right. How big of a deal is the rivalry week, though, this week? If you are Jake Retzlaff and it's your first time playing in this rivalry game, where's your head sit on this? Because I know a lot of this, John Beck was able to weigh in on this with Jake Retzlaff. How much do you actually need to dip in with a former quarterback? Now, here's the thing. John Beck is also a quarterback coach. So there's one thing where it's talking with a guy about mechanics and delivery and philosophy of quarterbacking. But what is it that Jake Retzlaff needs to know about this rivalry, you think?
It's not the normal game. There's something to it that's added that's a little bit more intense. It gets a little more crazy in there. And you need to be prepared for that, right? You need to be prepared for that.
Right.
And, we talk to Sly all the time. He'll tell you it's not just another game. When these players are in it and the coaches are in it, they'll try to convince themselves that it's just another game. It's not. It's not. Now, what's on the line here defines legacies. It does. How many Ute fans know who Mo Lee is because of one play he made in a rivalry game?
Okay.
Can you name another play he made at the University of Utah?
Nope.
You remember that play?
Mm-hmm.
How many other names in the rivalry just are attached to the rivalry because of what they did in that game?
You can say certain things. I'm going to be honest. The other day there was a NFL game where the team was facing a 4th and 18. That's where your brain goes.
Right.
That's what you think of.
There's probably been other situations in other games in the state involving BYU or Utah where they've had a nice comeback but those moments in this game are magnetized. Like everybody is watching this game with a sharper focus.
Right.
And a memory is attached to these games all the time because we remember them because they're so intense and they mean so much to everybody. So when you play well in these games, you are remembered. When you do something not well, it is also remembered. More so than any other game you're going to play in.
Do you really have to
There's
explain?
a pressure that comes with that.
But do you have to explain to a guy who's playing quarterback at the Division I level, at the Power 4 level, that a game is important? Right?
That's not what you're explaining to them.
I know, but is it added? But why
You're
add the
preparing them
but why
for
add
how
the pressure?
different it is.
How much different is it?
Ask the players; they'll tell you.
And how? And
Let's
why
ask Austin Collie when he comes on here at 3:30.
Okay. No, in my mind, I'm like, there's part of me that when I read this story about, and you can go to KSLSports.com and read up on what Mitch Harper wrote about this very thing. It was like, hey, Jake Retzlaff spoke with John Beck about this rivalry and how he needs to prepare for it. But what we also hear from these players every week, and I'm assuming we're going to hear from Connor Pay again, is that they're preparing for this game essentially how they've prepared for every game. Why would they change anything else if they're BYU? Utah's probably got to approach things a little bit differently in this game. But not from a historical rivalry perspective, but from this idea of they're coming from a deeper place, a darkness of not ever. I mean, when was the last time a Utah team lost 4 games in a row? I actually can't remember.
It was 2017. Tyler Huntley, Zach Moss, They had a rough patch there in October.
And losing
They
4
bounced
games
back from it, by the way, that team.
Right. And they
it's
don't-
strong and they got to a bowl game.
and they don't lose 4 games in a row. Like, that's just not something that Kyle Whittingham's programs do.
5 games in a row, that's a different conversation.
So
And that's what they're staring at here.
you can see how Utah would use this as motivation to get themselves out of a hole, because if they beat BYU, an undefeated BYU team, then you say, you know what? We can win the rest of our games because that's probably the best opponent we're playing the rest of the season. Iowa State included, who comes to Rice-Eccles, right?
Number 1, BYU, they're ranked 9th in the college football playoff. Yes, BYU is the best team in the Big 12 right now. If Utah beats BYU, they should win the next 3 games. And what an incredible turnaround that would be for Utah to finish 8-4 after all they went through.
Now,
And then that would mean that probably that Isaac Wilson goes out there and plays really well, or Brandon Rose goes out there and plays really well.
yes.
And then all of a sudden they've turned a corner offensively, and then anything's possible after that for them as far as winning those games.
I wonder if there's a part of this too, because and here's how you know that Kyle Whittingham is and Kalani Sitake, frankly, too, is lying to you when they go, "Oh, we always respect all our opponents and we treat every game the same way." They don't bring around players to describe this rivalry in detail, how much it means and the historic value, and to bring ghosts from the past up to make sure that you're inspired. Kyle Whittingham did that this week. The guy who has no emotion, right? The guy who, no, this is the same way we treat every game, belies his own theme by bringing in former players to talk about this rivalry game, right? That's why it's such a big deal. That's why this is such a huge deal, because these guys pretend like talking about it is different and the way they treat it is different, or that they don't treat it any differently, and it is freaking different. It is a different week. And you know what it is? It's a better week. It's a better way to approach a football game. You want to see this. You want to see this type of passion already every week in your teams. So how does BYU go to a next level? If you're a BYU fan, what's the next kind of version of what you get to, what you're trying to get to as a team? What is the next thing that you have to do, start doing better to be able to win this game? Because you're not playing the Utah team that lost to Houston. You're not playing the Utah team that lost 4 in a row. You're playing a Utah team that you have lost 9 out of the last 10 times you've faced them, and it hadn't even been close, right? And the ones that have been close, it was almost laughable, like it was like that it was ripped out of your hands, right? This rivalry game has been out of proportion the last decade and a half, really. And it means more because of what you're going to be facing this weekend. So all the Utah fans who think that losing to Houston means you're going to lose to BYU, losing to all these different teams 4 games in a row means you're going to lose to BYU, has nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with it. Sorry, you were about to make a point, and I was...
No, another thing that I was thinking of is this is a different era. And I know they played in 2021, but that was very early on. In fact, no, that was before NIL. Or very, very
It was
very
right when it
shortly
started.
after.
It was right when it started.
Like, NIL has changed, and the transfer portal and everything has changed how players develop in a program. You've got so many players that are new. BYU has more guys, but not Darius Lassiter hasn't played in a BYU-Utah game. Jake Retzloff hasn't played in a BYU-Utah game. LJ Martin hasn't played in a BYU-Utah game. I'd have to think, did his Roberts played in one? Was he in the 2021 game?
I don't know if Chase Roberts played in that game.
He get home from his mission after that. I'd have to look that up. But you get
you're
my
right.
point.
You're right.
And on the Utah side, Dorian Singer doesn't know anything about this rivalry, and he's a guy that they're going to lean on.
I think
Mekhi Bernard's the only guy that I can think of right off the top of my head on Utah's roster that played a significant role in that 2021 game.
2021.
Maybe Junior Tafuna?
2021 was interesting because, and Brant Keithy
Yes.
played in that game. The interesting thing about this, 2021 doesn't feel like that long ago. BYU fans are like, it's like yesterday. But the reality is BYU had
not in our new world of college football.
And BYU had just been announced that they were invited to the Big 12. Remember that? Like, it was running up to that week.
Yes.
That news dropped and everybody's mouths were agape and just like, I can't believe it. I can't believe what's going on. And you had, Utah, who was on its way to its very first Pac-12 champion, or their first Pac-12 championship that year, and their first trip to the Rose Bowl. But it was after they had lost to, was it Charlie Brewer who lost to, or was it Jake Bentley? Who was
Which year are we talking
I'm trying
about?
to think of 2021. Who did
No,
he?
Jake Bentley was 2020. So it was
Yeah,
Charlie
so
Brewer.
it was Charlie Brewer in
started
2020.
the first two
Chaz
games
Brewer. Yeah.
of 2021, and then he lost the BYU game, and then he got pulled in the San Diego State game the next game.
At half.
Cam came in, and then they just obviously went on a big tear.
So what I'm saying is that this game, these teams don't know each other. Like the reality is there's a handful of them that are that have played in this game on both sides of for each team. But the reality is that this is a new era of this rivalry.
You used to have the players on the team used to be able to do that. Not anymore. So Utah's naturally Kyle Whittingham's got to bring former players in to do that now. Same with BYU. You got to go, hey, John Beck, can you talk to Jake Retzlaff about this rivalry? So that is a dynamic, Alex, that has changed quite a bit.
Does that add too much of pressure too when you go, hey, this game's different, kid? And I know you've been playing great football, but this is different. Like, does that add pressure to it, or could you just say, hey?
It can also add a massive amount of adrenaline and incentive to go out there and be great.
Right. All right, let's listen to some of the quotes here. Here's Jack Kelly talking about playing in the rivalry. And this is, of course, a guy who came down from Weber State, probably didn't have any thoughts or designs in his head that he would ever play in this rivalry game, but here's what he said about it.
You know, I'm super excited. I know the environment's going to be amazing. I know there's going to be tons of Utah fans, tons of BYU fans, and I'm excited to be able to hopefully come out on top and show Cougar Nation what we're about. But growing up watching it, I know it's going to be an exciting and impactful game.
Okay. I don't think you have to tell Jack Kelly how to play hard, right?
No.
You do have to maybe get with Jake Retzlaff and go, hey, there's going to be. You got to protect yourself a little bit. You got to protect yourself this game. You got to be really head on a swivel, and you better start sliding, brother. Like, you better start thinking about hitting the turf foot first before you start thinking about going on and taking any of these Utah defenders on, because you need to stay in this freaking game. And here's what Jake Retzlaff said about the rivalry between Utah and BYU.
Ever since I've been here on campus, you learn about the rivalries, and so you just get to talk to people about it. I've been fortunate to talk to guys like John Beck about his experience in the rivalry. Obviously, he's played some good games and at least one or a couple games in this rivalry. So we know it's important and we know it's a big game, but we still got to approach it like professionals and go out there every day and execute.
Okay. How about the Utah side of things? Brandon Rose talks about this game a little bit. And by the way, as it goes along, do you get more of a vibe that Brandon Rose is the guy this next week?
I'm still not seeing that.
Saturday?
I mean, Isaac Wilson's listed first in the depth chart, and I don't know why they would make that switch.
That's what you would do if you wanted to trick everybody, wouldn't it be?
Well, if that's your goal is to trick people, then I guess you could do that.
Kyle Whittingham would absolutely love to deceive people as to who they think is going to be starting this game.
I have no idea who's going to start. My gut would say that Isaac would be unless he's hurt.
Here's what was said on the Utah side of things. First from Brandon Rose at quarterback, of course, and whether or not he's going to be starting or not, that's yet to be seen. But here's what he said about the rivalry.
It's a holy war. It's a big-time game. It's the winner of Utah right here. So I feel like there is a little bit more energy in regards to this game for sure.
I guess we snuck the microphone into the locker room for that one.
Yeah.
Lewis Powell.
That was our secret microphone.
By the way, speaking of guys who've played in this rivalry game, right? Lewis Powell, who coaches the defensive line for the Utes, talked about this history as a player and as a coach. Here's what he said.
It means a lot. I've been a part of it since 1999. You guys know what the rivalry is, right? You get bragging rights for the year or however long until the next time you play them, but it means a lot to us, and we're excited for the challenge. It's one of the best teams in the country, one of the best offensive linemen and offensive units in the country. Quarterback that you don't want to face, that could throw and run, and it's a really smart quarterback that is elusive when he gets out and runs, and somebody that makes great decisions and can throw the deep ball. Awesome challenge. We're excited for it. We'll see how we stack up.
Very, very understated, right? Oh, man. Great team. Gosh, they're so good. That quarterback, you never want to face a guy like this. Like, are you kidding? It's exactly the guy you want to face. It's exactly the team that you want to get right against, right? And this is a new era for Utah. I mean, honestly, they have a whole new set of games for them to figure out. By the way, 2/3 of the season has been played already. You have a third of the season left. Yeah. 4 games is not insignificant. BYU's season could absolutely unravel over these next 4 games. We talked about it in pre-show. We were like, dude, look at this thing. If BYU loses 2 games and they're 10-2, think about how disappointed BYU fans would be. And they missed the Big 12 championship game, which obviously means
would be insane considering how
of course,
much they've overachieved this year.
The shift of expectations is going to be the biggest whiplash we've ever seen in the modern era. I mean,
for their sake, let's hope that doesn't happen.
To go 2-2,
because they have an over 50% chance right now of going to the playoff,
according to ESPN's computers, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's so much more on the line here, obviously.
Yeah.
Than just bragging rights. Utah could absolutely get right this game, and they could correct, and they could come out of this thing. A lot would be forgiven.
Can you imagine the joy?
Oh yeah,
of everybody involved with Utah, fans, players, coaches, everybody, if they spoil BYU's perfect season.
Absolutely.
It will completely change their season.
All right, we'll take our first break here. When we come back, former BYU wideout Austin Collie, one of the best in the history of that program. We'll talk a little bit about what the rivalry game has meant for him. We'll chat with Austin Collie next. Always love having him on the program. Stay with us, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jeremiah Jensen, Alex Keary. Thanks for hanging out with us. This portion of the show brought to you by the folks at GoPave Utah. Don't wait for bad weather to schedule professional snow services with GoPave Utah this year. Your complete parking lot safety experts, GoPaveUtah.com. Joining us on the program right now, former BYU wideout Austin Collie on the program here with us. Austin, thanks for being with us, man. How's everything this week?
It's going great. I'm excited, man.
Everybody's excited about it. I want to go back in time to when you were preparing for these games. What was preparation like for you? I know everybody tells us it's the same, everybody, and I get that, but is it also different? How is it different than other games when you're preparing for this game?
Yeah, if anybody's telling you, giving the boilerplate answer that it's a different week, man, that's a lie, right? Like, everyone knows what week it is. If you're a player, you know what week it is. Your mindset's a little bit different. It's bragging rights, right, for the rest of the year, and especially when you haven't played in such a long time, or this game hasn't been played in such a long time, and there's so much backstory, right, in terms of the coaching staff, players, et cetera. Like, yeah, it's not a different game. When I was preparing for this game, definitely, had a little bit more of a chip on my shoulder that week.
When you see this team, this BYU team in 2024, and obviously as an NFL guy and a former Cougar yourself, you watch things differently. When you see this wideout group and you see what Jake Retzlaff has kind of become this year, what have you been impressed with how much they've been able to improve upon week on week with this team?
Yeah, I think a large part of the credit goes to A-Rod, right, and being able to utilize the weapons that he has and understanding the strengths that he has at each position, specifically a wide receiver. BYU's never been notorious for being a deep ball threat. There are guys that we do have on the roster that can get vertical and get by guys. Darius is one of those guys. Chase can get by some guys. Parker Kingston's got some gas. But for the most part, BYU wide receivers, and it's no different with this group, I don't think. I mean, they're technicians, right? Like, Fessy does a great job of coaching these kids up and making sure they're great route runners and being able to get it done within the numbers, right? And so the one thing that impresses me about this group is they make the play when it's needed. They've got a little bit more swagger to them, week in and week out. And especially guys like Chase, man. I mean, I don't think there's a more reliable receiver right now in the country. I think, the majority of his balls are going for first downs. His catch rate's around 70-80% on contested catches. And that says something about a receiver. It says something about his dependability and how big and important he is to the offensive production.
You played with two of the best quarterbacks to ever do it at BYU, and John Beck and Max Hall. And I'm sure you're watching Jake Retzlaff and watching him develop and get better this year. What are some of the qualities that you see in Jake that you remember stood out about guys like John Beck and Max Hall? Those qualities that are required for a great quarterback. Obviously, you played with Peyton Manning as well. What qualities does Jake have that that's really helped him turn the corner this year?
Yeah, I think just the overall kind of ownership of the offense and of the team, right? Like I do think that there's a certain personality and there's a certain characteristic that each quarterback has of having kind of this sense of being the leader of the entire team and owning the team, right? And understanding that, especially on the offensive side of the ball, the way that he goes, the offense goes. I think the first two games, just given the fact that, the decision of who the starter was going to be kind of leaked into that first week of the season or in preparation, kind of maybe didn't allow him to have that sense of ownership, right? Because he was still maybe debating on whether he was going to be the guy or not. And that tryout kind of bled into the first 2 weeks. But, after the SMU game, when he kind of struggled a little bit, I was super impressed with the way that he came back that Wyoming game. And he's got a little moxie to him, right? And that moxie continues to increase the more and more he continues to get comfortable with the wide receivers in this offense. And I think A-Rod's done a phenomenal job of, again, understanding the skills that he has on offense or with his offensive players to get that, hey, Jake plays better when he's able to kind of move around, escape the pocket, extend plays with his feet, and create plays with his feet, right? I think that allows him to kind of pull him out of that more analytical type mindset and let him play to his more natural ability.
You've done the thing where you've played this game a lot, and so maybe things don't really surprise you, but how ridiculous of a turnaround has it been in your mind? Like watching BYU in these games and now at 8-0 versus ending the season 5 losses in a row, and then to start the season off with basically the same personnel to 8-0. What does that even like? How does that even track? It doesn't seem like it seems so far of an outlier. But when you see it happen, how do you think that like the nuts and bolts of it? How does that happen for a team?
Well, from an outsider's perspective, I think if you didn't watch like the all 22 film last year, and you weren't really taking a look. I've been working with Chase Roberts for quite some time now, and he and I would watch film probably every week last year, and I got to see what was happening. There were little things that they needed to fine tune that they were just missing on that. In game type scenarios, they get magnified and they end up costing you games, but. You could see that they're right there. Given the fact that the defense was the first year under Jay Hill last year, that has a huge part of it. Going from year 1 to year 2 in a system is huge. You look at all the influx of players that came in, the new faces that we had from the transfer portal, especially at wide receiver. Most of the guys that had been there were too young to even, Chase was a sophomore, right? And still maybe felt like he was an underclassman at the time, and was looking to maybe some, seniority type leadership out of Keaton. Keaton was a guy that, came in from, Pittsburgh. To have him, to look to him as a leader, and him only have been there for 6 months and not really having that team cohesion, like those little types of things, man, and all those moving parts, ends up being magnified on the field, especially on the scoreboard. But, if you watch the whole film, you could see that, hey, listen, as soon as they start to get a little bit of confidence and they start gelling and they spend more time together, this team is going to be pretty talented. And, from spring, I was saying that this is definitely an 8-win team. I did not anticipate them going 8-0, though. Anybody that tells you, hey, it does not surprise me this BYU team went 8-0, they're lying to you, right?
What about when the team tells us that? What about when the team tells us that? Because they're telling us that, and I've said the same thing. I'm like, there's no way even the team could figure that out.
I don't know, man. It's hard to have those types of expectations, especially coming off the record that you came off, even knowing what you know, even knowing what I was telling you previously. To go 8-0, especially in this conference, I hear people talk about this conference as if. It's a terrible conference. There's not a lot of competition, and I say the contrary, right? I don't think there's a single team in this conference that's an A team, that's an A+ team. I think there's a lot of parity across the board, but there are a lot of B+, B- teams, and on any given week, as long as the team puts it together, they could string along a few victories, right? And there's a lot of talent there. So I don't know, to say that if I'm a BYU player, I'm going to tell you that, right? Like we anticipated that. I'm sure they anticipated having a lot more success than what the critics were giving them at the very beginning of the year, what Vegas was giving them at the very beginning of the year. But I don't know, man, to go 8-0 in this conference, that's a feat. especially coming off of what were they last year? 5 and
7.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's tough, man. That's tough. So maybe 6-2 is what they were thinking, but I could be wrong.
Austin, you accomplished so much during your playing career. You had some great moments. You played in a Super Bowl, man. You played with Peyton Manning. You did all these great things, and you were awesome at BYU. Where does 4th and 18 stand in all that? Is that the most special moment you had, or and does this week bring up a lot of those memories back? And how good does that feel?
Oh, anytime you beat Utah as a BYU football player, man, it's definitely a memory that will always be in the forefront of your mind, especially when this week rolls around. And to be able to beat that team in that fashion at home, I'm going to always remember it because that was the only time I beat them, right? I played them 2 other times and just happened to be the best Utah teams to ever play, right?
Yeah.
It just happened to be 2 of the best teams, 2 of the top 2 teams in the country at that point in time, right? In the 04 team when they went to the Fiesta Bowl, and then the 08 team when they went to the Sugar Bowl and beat Alabama, right? So those are 2 great teams. Obviously, the time that I was able to have an impact and beat them, I'm going to always remember those and forget about the losses, right? But it's a big week, man. It's a great game. I can't tell you how happy I am that it's back. This is what college football is all about. The animosity towards the fan bases, towards each other, just the geographical kind of essence of it all, just being so close and everything being broke up by just a point of a mountain, man, is just adds to it. This is what college football is all about.
Where does the rivalry stand now that they're back, not just in the same conference together, but in a power conference together? How much more special does that make it?
Oh, I mean, it provides so much juice because now it matters, right? Before Utah kind of had this attitude, like, all right, when we do play and we're playing little brother, and they were unhappy they were playing BYU because, no one who's trying to make a national title run wants to play a team that's less, or that they think is less than, have them disrupt their entire season. So, there really wasn't much on the line before except bragging rights, but this, man, this is, especially now that there's a pathway, a direct pathway to the college football playoffs. Like every year, this game's going to matter more and more, especially as both teams continue to get better and better. And I picture these 2 teams being at the top 3, being the top 3 teams in the Big 12 for a long, long time. So, every week, every year that we have this game, it's going to mean a lot.
If someone like Darius Lassiter, who's never played in this game, comes up to you and says, "Hey, Austin, what's it like playing against Utah? Why does this mean so much? Can you help me understand this?" What would you tell him?
Oh, I tell them, come spend a week in my insurance office right now with my partners, right? And then you'll quickly find out what it means, right? Both my partners, massive Utah fans. We've been going back and forth for the last 2 months
Any
on who's going to
pranks?
win this game. No, but there might have been some. There might be some bets, right?
Okay.
They might be getting them. They might be getting a Magic Happen shirt on their desk tomorrow to wear this weekend.
Are you selling those? You should be selling those.
Hold on a minute. If I go to a football game and I'm presented with a Magic Happens T-shirt or a Cougar tail, the Magic Happens T-shirt is number 1.
I'm glad to hear it. Send me your address. I'll send you one.
There you go. Let's go.
There you go. Magic just happened.
I know.
I love it. That's great, Austin.
Austin Collie, former BYU wideout, and it's always fun, not just during rivalry week, but to be able to chat with Austin Collie every time is always fun for us. So, Austin, have fun, man. Are you going to go up to Rice Cycles, or do you just go, you know what, so much better on the couch?
No, I'm actually doing the pre and post game at BYU Sports Nation.
That's right.
Oh, boy.
I'll be down there doing a little bit of broadcast and then watching the game in between.
Oof. Set up the BYU TV tent right outside Rice Eccles.
You guys may need some added security for this.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like, how hard is that? That shouldn't be that hard, right?
No.
Normally they would be like, sure, absolutely, we got a place for you. Come on down, come on up. Let's go
in the north end zone.
right behind the dumpster.
Oh my goodness! All right, well, that'll be a ton of fun, and we're looking forward to it. Austin Collie, thanks, man. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Austin.
All right, guys. Thanks.
There you go.
All-time great.
Magic Happens T-shirt.
Nobody understands. That's that, and I'm glad we got all that, because like nobody understands this rivalry more than somebody like that played in some of the most competitive BYU games we've ever seen. Like the stage at that point was just so elevated, and I believe it can get back to that now in the Power 4 stage. But Austin Collie was in some of those battles, man, and that game down there in Provo, it was not a great game. But the ending was just unbelievable.
So, I was spoiled the very beginning of my career to watch Beck to Harleen I was in the opposite end zone, so I'm watching it from the other side of the.
My first game here was 2005, so I'm along with you.
Right, and then I was in that south end zone at BYU when 4th and 18 happened, and that's coming at us. That was coming right at us, and I remember thinking, well, there's no way they're going to leave him open. There's no way they're going to leave him open.
Unbelievable.
The type of stuff that happens in this rivalry is just it's unpredictable. And you know what's interesting too, and I continue to say this, even if it's a 4-4 Utah team, or if it was a 1-6 BYU team going into this rivalry game, when they're in the same conference together, this is the most important rivalry in the Big 12. Brett Yormark,
it's not even close,
needs to absolutely go and make sure, and obviously when they're an 8:15 kick, like they want to put this thing on, all day of watching football, and then kind of cap it off with the end of the night to have those two teams firing off against one another. But there's no such thing as Baylor versus TCU. Okay, I grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. No one gave two craps about those two teams.
I watched that game last week. Nobody was talking about it.
No, okay, and they try to prop that up like it's an important one. Quit it with the Kansas State stuff, and Farmageddon can stuff it too. Like, you can try all you want, but when you have a rivalry that has been and those other rivalries have been played 100 times plus too, with teams that no one cares about, right? I mean, the Rocky Mountain Cup or the Rocky Mountain Oyster Cup, whatever they play between Utah and Colorado now.
Come Rocky on. Mountain Oyster Cup.
No one cares. This is the only game that matters from a rivalry perspective in this conference, and they got to take advantage of it.
I prefer my Rocky Mountain oysters in a bowl.
Fry them up. Fry them up with some ranch. Oh, new bowl game is right. The Rocky Mountain Oyster Bowl? Oh. No one would go to that. Oh, could you imagine?
Brought to you by Jack Link's Jerky.
All right, we'll take a break. Hey, nominate your youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. We've been asking you all season long, and you have responded by nominating these youth sports volunteers. We need more of these volunteer nominations as well as we keep going. We're just going to keep it going through the year, because all year long there are these youth sports volunteers in your area that make a difference. And you can nominate those folks and have them get a prize from Hercules Credit Union in the form of a gift card, and from Beehive Meals in the form of $200 to Beehive Meals. That's amazing. And all you have to do is really sing their praises with a nomination. KSLSports.com/contest. You listen every Thursday. Hey, that's today. That means next hour we're going to roll out a winner right here in JJ and Alex. So help us celebrate those efforts. And it's all brought to you by the folks of Hercules Credit Union and Beehive Meals for the Hercules Hero of the Week. KSLSports.com/contest. And nominate your youth sports volunteer right there. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We got more Your Youth of 50 updates coming up. And then we have a Would You Rather right around the corner. Stay with us.
Listen, everybody. Real-life hypotheticals to get your brain churning. As JJ and Alex ask, would you rather?
All right, Would You Rather on the program. Thanks for being with us, by the way, on a Thursday edition of Rivalry Week on 97.5 and 1280, the KSL Sports Zone. Get ready for BYU and Utah with a special extended pregame coverage going on this Saturday on the KSL Sports Zone. Tune in starting at 6 p.m. on Saturday, and we're going to be live up at Roland Hall, which is 720 Guardsman Way, starting at 10 a.m. Yes, we're getting an early start on this one, all the way up till kickoff, extended pregame coverage. Lloyd Cole, Christian Cox, Jake Hatch, and myself, both BYU and Utah pre- and post-game shows are going to be a 4-person deal this week. We're combining everything. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I know we're giving away food, and it's all brought to you by the folks at Beehive Meals. So go or come up and say hello, take a look as you walk by over to the stadium. It's a fun time, so we'll be up there. Would you rather have one of the most memorable highlight plays in the Utah-BYU game or a pro football career that never really pans out? Now, you asked the question, Austin Collie. It's not that his NFL career didn't necessarily, quote-unquote, pan out.
Oh, no.
It
was awesome.
Ended by multiple concussions, and
Played
he
the
was
Super Bowl. He's great.
He's on his way to really, I mean, and he was just one of those.
Without the concussions, I'm convinced he would have become a Pro Bowl receiver once or twice.
For sure. And he probably would have had like an 11-year career.
No doubt.
And he would have been Peyton's go-to guy for a lot of years as that slot guy, you know? And he had a phenomenal rookie season, and you asked him, you said, okay, of all those things, where does like 4th and 18 and you know, memories like that, where does that shake out? And he's like, yeah, I mean, it's one of the best. I can't imagine that a BYU-Utah rivalry would be better than even just like a handful of games in the NFL. I think the NFL, for me, the pro career, even at whatever level it might have been, would have been more important than having one memorable moment in an NFL or in a BYU-Utah rivalry.
Yeah, but look at Johnny Harline, who it didn't work out in the NFL, but he's a household name in Utah and will be for a long time because he completed one of the great plays in the rivalry's history. So there is a lot to be said about that. There's players I mentioned Mo Lee at the beginning of the show. Utah fans, you say Mo Lee and they get goosebumps. Right? Because that matters. Like that player stepped up in that big game and helped you win and beat BYU, and it matters. They're not forgotten. You have a chance to, when you play in this game, to etch your name in the history of the rivalry, and you become a fan favorite, or the other way around. I mean, look at Julian Blackman, who's had an incredible career. You don't think he likes to brag and talk about how the fact that he had 2 pick sixes in these rivalry games?
Yeah. I think
in
about
back-to-back years.
You know what?
How cool is that?
To me, and I know that
matters.
I know that Francis Bernard was one of these guys that is a hiss and a byword down in Provo, right?
Uh-huh.
But think about that juxtaposition of being all in at BYU and then running a was it a pick six or was it a
he had a pick
score?
6 in 2019.
So he takes it in the end zone and he ran it into the, if memory serves, he ran it into the student set, like it was that south end zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
did he throw up the U?
Oh yeah, and and like the student section. I mean, you had to look at that and go, ooh, that's what makes this fun. All right.
It does. You remember that. Utah fans 100%. Will always speak of Francis Bernard in the highest regard because of that play. And obviously BYU fans have a different. I don't think BYU fans would have a negative feeling about Francis Bernard if he didn't have that moment, and he didn't. It's not just transferring to Utah. It's what he did in that game.
Yeah. All right. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We've got more to go right around the corner. Our weekly conversation with Connor Pay coming up, a Rivalry Week edition conversation with Connor Pay coming right up. More to go. 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Your home for the best college football coverage in Utah is on the KSL Sports Zone. Ready? Kalani Sitake and the Cougars hope to keep their dream season alive as they head north to the Hill for a showdown against the Utes. Your home for the best coverage of the Holy War is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome on in. JJ and Alex, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. As always, our program brought to you by the good folks at G2G Bars. All natural ingredients and no preservatives make the G2G Bar perfect for anybody who needs that quick, tasty, nutritious boost. It's Rivalry Week, and it's fun to talk with the players who used to be a part of this rivalry. And it's even more fun to talk with the guys who have played in the rivalry and are currently in that rivalry as well. This portion of the show also brought to you by an incredible selection of Kia, Subaru, Chevy, Jeep, Dodge, or Ram. You can visit the Doug Smith family of dealerships in Linden or in Spanish Fork. Great service starts with know-how, and nobody knows like Doug. Our weekly conversation with Connor Pay. So let's fire it up right here. Let's get it going.
It's time to take you inside the huddle. Here we go. Straight from the source. This is the Players Club with JJ and Alex, featuring Cougar offensive lineman Connor Pay on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Yes, our weekly dip in with Connor Pay, offensive lineman and captain of the BYU Cougars. What's going on, Connor?
Nothing much, guys. How are you?
Nothing much for us either. Look, we're just getting
just another week.
It's another week. It's not a problem. We take on every show. We respect every show.
That's right. We only take one show at a time.
Yeah, every show's our.
We never look ahead.
Every show's our Super Bowl. Have we figured? Are we saying all the right things?
You're right on the head, hitting it right on the head. Perfect. You guys are learning after all these phone calls.
We thank you, Connor. Thank you for your wisdom.
We had Fesi Sataki on the program this week, and talking with the former players, great. That's always fun. Talking with guys who are inside these locker rooms and are watching the process, we asked them about kind of the energy of practice. I want to get your thoughts. You've seen week to week how this team is prepared. It's been successful every week in their preparation. What's practice been like this week as BYU's gotten ready for this rivalry game?
It's been awesome. The energy's been really high, obviously. And I thought especially today we executed really well. And so I think the guys have the right mindset, and, there's a lot of juice, associated with this game, of course, because we're just excited to get the chance to be 1-0 this week, and to do it against them makes it even better. So I think it's been really high energy, really high intensity, and I think it's been a really productive week so far.
You always remind us and tell us that, you don't pay attention as a team, as a group, to what's going on the outside or what people are saying about you or where you're ranked, whatever. But at the same time, you also not afraid to tell us, like, if you're an underdog at UCF, you're going to use that as motivation. Do you guys use the college football playoff ranking that came out yesterday as motivation this week and beyond?
I mean, obviously, like I've talked about before, our motivation doesn't come from anywhere other than what's inside the building, and that's how it's been since January. Everything else is ancillary or supplementary to that. And so, yeah, obviously you look at the college football playoff ranking, and, you can't be mad about being in the top 10, but, yeah, I think obviously there's still some people out there who don't believe, and, obviously we want to change that, and, we're going to go try and make statement number 9 this week.
I know that getting ready for this game is always an interesting one, and you do try to keep games, compartmentalized as individual games. And so how do you look at this Utah team? We talk about preparing for every team every week and what they look like on defense, and what have you seen so far? Because of all the knocks you can have on this Utah team, most of it is not coming on the defensive side of the football, who you guys are going to be facing off against.
Right. No, that's very true. They're definitely not losing games because of their defense. After watching them on tape, man, they're solid, like they always are. Obviously they're having some issues as a whole, but on the defensive side of the ball, they're still extremely talented and really disciplined, really gap sound defense. They're going to play you in a lot of cover 1, and even a lot of cover 0 too, and say, okay, we're going man for man. We're lining up man on man. We're better than you. We're going to line up and show you that. And and so they're really strong and really good on defense, and playing so much cover 1 opens them up to do a lot of things in the stunt and blitz game, and so they're really solid on defense, and we as an offense know that, and and so we're definitely preparing to play a really solid defense this week.
Your dad played at BYU and played in some of these games. I know this is probably in the past and even now an exciting week for your family. What is this rivalry game meant to your family? Do you have memories watching the games? What are your feelings about this game as a whole and the rivalry's history?
Yeah, no, I think I definitely have more memories watching it versus hearing my dad talk about it and experiencing it, just because, the era he was in, that stretch of years, they didn't really lose to Utah very much. And so they didn't really care that much on his teams. It was kind of, they went up there, Utah came here, BYU beat the crap out of them, and they moved on to the next game. And so it wasn't, I don't know if the rivalry was all that intense for them in the late 80s and early 90s, but kind of watching how it's grown through the early 2000s and then to the mid 2010s. You know, it's been pretty exciting to watch. Obviously, a lot of good games, and you know, it's obviously been a big part of me growing up and watching college football, and obviously having friends on both sides, and so it's been really fun. It's one of the great rivalries in college football, and I think now that we're in the same conference again, I think it's going to get back to what it was when we were in the Mountain West together.
Yeah, the conference thing is a big deal, and obviously having it being Power 4 football is a huge deal. And Utah's success in the last few years and being Pac-12 champs, 2 years in a row in 22 and 23, like that. Those are things that all add up to, hey, this is not just a regular old rivalry game. These are two teams who have a lot on the line, especially for you guys this year. How much plays into this week of, all of the stuff that isn't football related? How do you keep all that stuff out?
Honestly, it's not that hard. It's just turn your phone off. Like it really isn't. Once when you're in the building at practice, focusing on getting better for this week, it's really not that hard to tune it all out. It's a lot of us delete social media apps and things during the week just to try to remove distractions and stuff. And so I think there's a lot of ways that you can avoid the outside noise. If you don't want to hear what's being said in the media, then don't consume the media. And that's it's a pretty easy solution, to be honest.
In conversations we've had with you, you've referenced that you've got some friends up there on the Hill that play for Utah. How does that impact the emotions of the game for you when you have those kind of relationships on the other side of it?
This year it sucks because it's not looking like I'm going to be quite ready to play in this game, and so there's especially on the defensive line, there's guys I wanted to play against, and we love going back and forth, and because we see each other at our little brother's high school games and at other events around the state, and so I think there's bragging rights on the line, and so. But it's also surreal at the same time, where it's like there are a couple players on that defense that I grew up training with, and so it's like, man, I remember when we were 8, 9, 10 years old training together, and now we're both playing college football against each other, which is pretty crazy, and so I think in that aspect, it brings a lot of emotions just because there's history. And then obviously it stings for me a little more because I wanted to play in this game really bad.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I know that you've been real open about what your health has been like. I know last week you were a little bit nervous about what that decision was going to be. When we saw the depth chart come out, JJ and I both went, Connor's name's not on the depth chart here. Your thoughts on kind of where there's a lot that goes into that decision. Obviously, number one is your health and your desire to be able to kind of get there. Combined with talking with the doctors, and so how are things looking though overall? Are you taking a step back, or is it getting better?
No, not at all. And if we're being honest, it's been 5 weeks and 2 days.
Yeah, you're right there.
Since I broke my foot, that's a fast turnaround for a broken bone, and so the bone is healing really well. It's actually in comparison to normal time, it's actually ahead of schedule. Yeah. It just wasn't quite ready for this week, and I knew it was a long shot from the beginning, just because of how crunched I was for time. Everything's right on track, and I was able. Ultimately, I let the surgeon make the final decision. In the sense that I kind of just gave him some parameters. It was like, okay, if you just in terms of risks and rewards and stuff of coming back a week early. And it just didn't make a lot of sense, because the nice thing about a Jones fracture is it's a really simple recovery if you allow it to be. And so there was just one side of the fracture, like the bone looks really good, and he's actually very happy with how far it's come. But there was one little edge of the fracture he wanted to close up this week. And he said once that's closed, because of the screw that's in my foot, it's like rebar and concrete. It'll never break again. Unless something crazy happens, but, and that was my exact experience on my other foot in high school. Once that fracture was healed, I was able to progress back to the field in a couple of weeks, and I didn't have any of the resources that I have here. And so, I think I'm honestly, I'm pretty happy with how the recovery's going, because it's looking really good long term, which is ultimately what I want. And, the nice thing is, it's looking like I'll be cleared next week and I'll get to play against Kansas, which is awesome. I'll get the final word on that on Monday after I have a CT scan, but I've done everything I could with my body in the weight room and in the training room. And, they were able to, technology has come so far.
Yeah.
But I was able to basically not lose hardly any muscle mass on my left leg throughout this whole process. And now I'm allowed to put heavy weight on my leg as long as I'm through the heel, and not quite rolling up on my toes yet. They'll let me start doing that this weekend. But and since I've been able to be cleared to do some of those things, my body feels a lot more ready to transition back to the field than it would have otherwise.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one to miss out on. But like week 9 versus being there with your guys, possibly weeks 13, 14, and 15, that'd be pretty freaking special.
Yeah.
Right. And so obviously a special game. It's a personal one, but at the end of the day, I had to make a decision that was best for my long-term health, and then honestly, it was to benefit the team the most in the long run. And to be honest, like I said from the beginning that the goal was Utah, but that it was going to be that was a stretch. Yeah. It was unlikely, and so I've known. All right, I've known it's not. It's pretty rare for a 320-pound person to come back from a broken foot in 5.5 weeks. Like that's just, that just isn't. But it's going to be quite a miracle that I'm going to be ready at 6 weeks. And it's looking like that's going to be the case, and I'll be able to practice next week and play in the game, which is a miracle in and of itself. And I'm really grateful for that. But obviously, bummed I'm going to be missing out on this game, but I'll be on the sideline, obviously helping the guys and trying to dissect the defense. And I won't be on my scooter. I'll be walking around, which will be awesome.
Sweet.
So. There's a silver lining to everything, right?
There you go. One question I had that this isn't about you or BYU, but it's about a family member. Your brother made a college decision, and I don't know how much you're allowed to talk about that, but your younger brother is committed to BYU, which I think BYU fans should be really excited about. And I think Austin's probably higher rated and you tell me, might be a little bit more talented than the other brothers. What do you think?
He's definitely. Let's pump the brakes on talent.
Oh, there we go.
But,
I was hoping you'd say that.
But he's definitely the most highly recruited out of the three of us.
I like that.
Boy, he's probably pretty glad he didn't make that UCLA decision today, huh? Or this week, huh?
I know. But no, it was. It's been a cool process to watch him go through all of it. Obviously, with my own bias, I'm pumped that he's coming to BYU just because I think BYU's headed in a great direction, and I think Coach Woods is a great developer of players and can help him get to the NFL. And, I think he's also pretty close with Eli. And there was a time where it was looking like both of them were going to go to Oregon together. And so that's what I was prepared for, and then the tides kind of turned a little bit in the last month and a half or so, wow. And they kind of both decided that hey they wanted to be here, and I think Coach Woods is probably the biggest piece to that. They really believe in him, and so obviously cool day for the family, right? That makes it 4 for 4. And that's a special thing. So I'm pumped for him. I'm glad that he did all his due diligence. He did everything he wanted to do, every visit, all the stuff, and so he left no stone unturned, so he could feel good and confident about his decision. And I know he's relieved that it's all over, and I'm just excited for him.
Connor, another week in the books, man. We always appreciate you doing, so much to be able to chat with us and take some time out of.
I know the fans
busy.
appreciate it too.
And it's a super busy week for you on top of everything else that's going on, and so we're looking forward to it. And and listen, what's great is we're going to be talking about Kansas next week, and we're going to be able to talk about you getting ready and being back on that field. So we're looking forward to it, man.
Thank you, guys. I'm looking forward to it too. Can't wait.
Okay.
All right, Connor Pay, everybody. There he is. Another week in the books with Connor Pay. Love getting the honesty. Love being able to get those updates for him, too. Been super cool in this process, being able to let us know what's going on. All right, we'll take the break here. More to go. Stay right here. It's Rivalry Week, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And now, a look at traffic from the KSL Traffic Center.
Got a couple of accidents fresh on the rush hour this afternoon. First up in the Ogden area, southbound Wall Avenue's got a left lane closed at 1100 South. And then on I-15 in the Valley, we have a wreck reported about 10th South.
Better than anyone else, this is Ute Insider Steve Bartle of KSLSports.com on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Thanks for being with us on the program. We appreciate your patronage. It is, of course, a massive week for us here at the KSL Sports Zone, and frankly, in the entirety of the state of Utah. And I would even extend that into the Big 12. And I've been saying it from the beginning. And Steve Bartle, our guest, our Ute Insider, KSLSports.com, joining us on the program. Steve, where should this rivalry land? As it is in the Big 12 right now. In my mind, it's the premier rivalry, and maybe it's because the rest of the conference, resides, in the state of Texas or in Kansas or in Iowa or in Oklahoma. But the reality is that I don't think anybody holds a candle to this rivalry in the whole conference.
Yeah, I definitely think it's one of the top rivalries in the conference, especially in football, right? Like, this being the driver in the state, it is the premier event, the biggest event in the state, and with it being in the biggest sport, obviously that carries a lot. There are some other good rivalries in the Big 12. Arizona State, Arizona, that's a hated rivalry. Kansas State, Kansas, but those are more geared towards basketball than anything else. Arizona State and Arizona, I guess, is just. There's a good disdain between the two programs there. But, with this being what it is, being as ingrained in our everyday living, this is, for me, by far the best rivalry in the Big 12 because it's one of the best in the country.
And we hope that this game delivers each and every time it happens. But in order to do that, the Utes got to fix some things. And one of the things they're working on during the bye week is figuring out who's going to start at quarterback. What are you hearing right now, and what does your gut tell you?
My gut tells me, I don't know what my gut tells me.
You're hungry?
It's changed. It's probably changed 10 times during this week. Like
you can take that question however you want, Steve. You can talk about Crownburger or whatever you want.
Oh man. I'm telling you, with this falling back an hour, I think that's what I'm learning. It's 5:30. It's dinner time.
Yep.
No, it'll be it'll be interesting to see what happens Saturday night. Kyle Whittingham didn't want to divulge intel, but he was very adamant that they have a plan and that they feel good about that plan. Does that mean it's Isaac Wilson and they figured something out to help him? Perform and execute a little bit better? Or are they going to make a change and go with Brandon Rose? My gut tells me as I wade through all the hunger and all that we'll see a change, that we will see Brandon Rose as the starting quarterback Saturday night. And, that'll be interesting. I think, for Isaac, there are a few things here, right? Obviously, he's taken a number of hits. And as a true freshman, that can take a toll. That can add up over time, where he may not be dealing with an injury per se, but just the bumps and bruises. Being a true freshman and taking these hits from these grown men, it can take its toll. And I think you saw that effect in that Houston game. That second half, just he wasn't throwing with the same sort of oomph, the same sort of accuracy. It just seemed to impact him. And there's still a lot of belief in Isaac. And so perhaps, there is just a couple tweaks to the offensive game plan, and he's still the guy. But I think what we'll see is Brandon Rose on Saturday night.
If you see Brandon Rose, and part of the decision is obviously the main decision you make as a coach is to say, hey, who's going to give us the best chance this week to win this game?
Yeah.
But how much do you think in your mind, like, okay, does Isaac Wilson look at that and go, all right, man, I've been dealt a raw deal here. I lose my starting spot here as well to this guy on the week that BYU and Utah are playing. Does any of that make Utah fans or maybe you nervous about, like, if this kid wants to stick around? Do you think he gets threatened a little bit in his mind of hitting the transfer portal after a decision like that gets made?
There's always going to be that worry, that concern. I think you've seen Utah fans voice that concern, obviously. But this is the sort of situation where, as long as everybody just kind of goes about it the right way, that, hey, you can start another quarterback in a game like this, especially given everything in the lead up to this contest and what Isaac has been experiencing himself. You can make a change and still have a lot of belief and still think that Isaac is the future of your program. There is still a way to balance that. But obviously what we've seen is, the quarterbacks, it's a volatile position in college football. And those starting jobs are, they're hot commodities. There's only so many, at the Power 4 level, and there are a growing number of quarterbacks each and every year, right? So you're fighting for that job. You're trying to hang on to it as best you can. But I think given, again, what he's experiencing probably with his health, with the offensive struggles, I do think there's a way for Utah to have gone about this where you get, Brandon Rose potentially starting, you make a change, and you still emphasize that message that, hey, we still have a ton of belief in you. There's absolutely a scenario where that the two things can coexist.
Well, we'll see if that change, if it happens, can ignite this offense. But you look on the other side with the defense, this is a great opportunity for them because I think, this is my feeling, is if they can figure out how to get some pressure on Retzlaff and get back to causing a lot of those chaos plays, that is their ticket to victory here. They have got to force turnovers for BYU. Can this defense get back to that in this matchup?
Yeah, I think that is the biggest key to the game is disrupting Retzlaff, right? Because he's shown that when he is under pressure, when he is getting hit, that he can make mistakes, right? And so, that's going to be an important part of this game is getting pressure on Retzlaff. And what you have to do, though, is you've got to eliminate first down rushing success. You've got to keep them in predictable situations. You've got to make them one-dimensional. It's something Kyle Whittingham talks about all the time is they take away the run game to make teams one-dimensional. And that is a big help to defensive success where you can potentially create some turnovers. So, that's not going to be an easy task. At this BYU offensive line, they've played really well. They've limited the number of pressures on Retzlaff throughout the year. But this Utah defensive front is going to be as healthy as it's been all season long. We saw Connor O'Toole make his return against Houston. We've seen Logan Connell, Van Fillinger. They're going to be fresh coming off the bye. And then on the interior of the line, they're going to likely have back Junior Tafuna, Keanu Tanavasa, even probably Aliki Vamahi, who they lost game 1 of the season. So, it's going to be imperative for the defensive front to control the line of scrimmage against the ground game and get BYU into those predictable passing situations where they can tee off and try to get pressure on Retzlaff to promote their chances of getting a turnover.
We've talked about guys in this in the history of this rivalry who you they make a play that is historic for the actual rivalry itself, but maybe they're just a name that you don't see they're kind of a surprise. Somebody who makes that impact in the game. Who's a person that could show up for the University of Utah that you go, I didn't expect that guy to make such a huge impact in that game this Saturday in a rivalry game. They show up huge.
What a great question. And as you were asking that, the memories of Jason Shelley, leading that fourth quarter comeback in 2018, the last time these two teams played at Rice-Eccles Stadium 6 years ago. That's crazy. John Hayes, when they played 2012, and him being that quarterback, obviously Brett Ratliff, coming out of nowhere, being that guy. So you think Utah's had this formula work for them in the past of, a quarterback stepping up, emerging, and being that sort of difference maker. We'll see if that can be a thing for Utah in tomorrow night. But I think it's going to be super important for Utah on the defense side of the ball to play their best game of the season. This BYU offense is balanced. They can beat you in a number of ways. They have options in the passing game. They have depth at running back. And so, it's going to be, particularly important for a player like a Karenni Reed, the quarterback of the defense, to have for Utah. I'm looking at Karenni Reed to be that guy. And he's still not 100%. He's still not back to what he's fully capable of. But I know how much this game means to him. I know how much he loves this team, how much he loves this program. And I think when you've got those kind of guys quarterbacking, leading, certain units, I think that tends to lead to those sort of opportunities. So I look for Karenni Reed to be that sort of guy to make those plays for Utah on Saturday night.
This is the first time ever that these two teams will play on this type of a stage in a Power Four conference as conference mates. What does that do? What can that do for this rivalry game moving forward?
Well, it adds so much juice to the rivalry, right? Like there's just so much more meaning and so much more at stake than what it's been over the last decade, right? I mean, you go back to 2021, BYU gets the win in Provo, and normally that's a bummer. But what did Utah do? They went on to win their conference championship in the Pac-12. They went on to the Rose Bowl. That BYU loss was an afterthought. Obviously not anymore, considering that we're back in it again. But this conference, this being a conference game, it just adds so much more to it. And I think, every sort of comment, every sort of slight or somebody not complimenting the other team, saying a certain thing, it just is magnified. And, these two programs spent decades, almost a century together as conference foes. And so there's just a lot of history, and to have it back, as a conference game, it just means so much more. It really adds to the potential for those sort of magic, the sort of crazy moments in these games and crazy situations. Just adds so much more to it. So I'm excited for it because it just adds that additional juice, and that you're going to get the absolute best from each program, regardless of the situations that they're coming into this game, right? Utah 4-4, obviously they're not playing their best. You still know that they're going to give their best, that they're going to be up for this game and look to play spoiler, with BYU.
Steve Bartle, our Ute insider for KSLSports.com. If it comes to this rivalry game, you're taken care of right here on the KSL Sports Zone and also on KSLSports.com. Between Steve Bartle and Mitch Harper, we've got you covered on the BYU and Utah side of things. Steve, we appreciate it, man, and we'll chat with you again. We'll see you on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll see you guys Saturday. Should be a fun one.
Giant party at Roland Hall in the pre-game.
Right. Come party with us.
All right. It's that time of the week, of course, for us to be able to roll out our Hercules Hero of the Week. Our winner this week is Claudia Thomas, nominated by Miriam Painter. She gets herself a $50 Visa gift card from Hercules Credit Union and $200 to Beehive Meals. Claudia said, Miriam, who nominated Claudia, said, Claudia stepped up without hesitation to be the team mom and manager when the Pee Wee football team was dealt a raw deal with no coach and all new players. She immediately got organized, communicated with everybody, supported all of the team. She was on top of everything, getting the kids equipment that they needed and making sure that we're on top of fundraising to make sure that parent participation for the games and the snacks is easy to do. She went above and beyond all season long, executing that job flawlessly. She never complained or griped about anything that could have been done or anything that went wrong. She was a selfless volunteer and a positive example and our team hero. I think every one of us knows somebody like Claudia Thomas who steps up, and I want you to be able to nominate somebody like Claudia in your world. And we appreciate the efforts of Claudia Thomas, who's our winner of the Hercules Hero of the Week. She gets that $50 gift card from Hercules Credit Union and $200 to Beehive Meals. And you can nominate a sports volunteer in your neighborhood, especially that focuses on those youth. KSLSports.com/contest. That's KSLSports.com/contest. Our congrats to Claudia Thomas and our thanks to Miriam for making that nomination as well. We'll take the break here. We'll come back. We'll wrap things up when we come back because we have two pregames getting you ready for today. The Jazz, of course, on 97.5. Utah Hockey Club on 1280 AM. We got you covered on all sorts of sides of things when it comes to this world of sports that we're in now in the state of Utah. So we'll come right back. More to go. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.